Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Nicholas Rydell. I'm the director of TCO Certified. I also have my colleague Stephen Fuller here with me, who's the manager for criteria development and compliance. And today we will go through the new report that we have released about the impacts of TCO Certified, the years 2015 to 2018. So the purpose of this presentation is to give everyone a quick overview of this report. It's about 30 pages, a little more, and I thought this could be a teaser for those who haven't read it, and a short overview for those who are going to read it, or maybe just want to read a part of it. So you will have an idea what the different sections of the report will be about. And in the end, we will have this questions and answer period. All right, so let's start. This is a report called Impacts and Insights that you can find on our webpage, and it's covering the achievement by TCO Certified in the period 2015 to 2018. So this is a period that we have data from and that we can present, and it's our ambition to release these kinds of report going forward. So this report covers mainly TCO Certified Generation 7, which was active during this time. Now we have TCO Certified Generation 8 with tougher criteria, and the result of the new generation will be published in the future when we have data from that. So let's get into the report. And we are covering a lot of areas in TCO Certified. And these three are the most important ones that we thought we wanted to talk about for the years 2015 to 2018. We also look at performance and ergonomics during the use phase. TCO Certified is a sustainability label, and we are looking at sustainability in the whole life cycle of the product. So in the manufacturing with raw materials and so on, in the use phase, and in the end of life phase. And we are looking at all the aspects of sustainability, such as environmental aspects, social aspects in all these phases, and also economy and performance aspects in the different phases. But these are the three topics that we decided to talk about in this report. We have to limit ourselves. It's already 30 pages, and these are the ones that we thought were the most important for purchasers and the industry to hear about. So first of all, let's go into factory conditions, and this is basically socially responsible manufacturing of the TCO Certified product. So we have requirements here on the brand owner to ensure that the manufacturing process in the supply chain is conducted in a socially responsible way. And the requirements for this area has been upgraded every generation of TCO Certified, and in this generation 7 that was active 2015 to 2018, we have seen a lot of achievements caused by these requirements. And now I will go through quickly what the report explains in this area. So this chapter of the report is page 7 to page 18 in the report. And the kind of main challenge that we are talking about on these pages are the worker health and safety problems that we've seen in the supply chain of IT products. They are reoccurring. So even if there are audits and they are closed, then we've seen that these kind of problems reoccur. Similar ones or the same ones reoccur at the same factories. That has been a problem historically, and that was something that we want to try to handle in TCO Certified during this period. We have also seen that forced labor and working hours were really challenging problems to solve. These problems required a lot of rethinking in the industry, and it's been really tough to find closure on these non-conformities. So this would be the most important challenges in this area that we've seen in the period 2015 to 2018, and that's also areas where TCO Certified has tried to do something that other initiatives have not done in the same extent. So what we did then was to use a slightly different method. Our main tools is to have a continuously independent verification of the factories. So audits are conducted continuously, and a factory that has been audited know that they will be audited again. So it is beneficial to have solutions that are strong and reliable to avoid reoccurrence. The next tool that we used was to have verified closure audits to ensure that corrective actions that were promised by the factories and brand owners were actually solved and closed. And finally, we have consequences in TCO Certified. And during this period, we have also enforced consequences, and we have used the fact that TCO Certified includes consequences if problems are not solved. So these are the most important tools that TCO Certified use to achieve closure on health and safety issues and to work with other challenges in the factories that we've noticed. The report will go through this much more in detail, and if you look at those pages 7 to 18, you will be able to read about all of these different methods we are using and why we have chosen these and how we are thinking about it. And if you have questions, feel free to email us, and we're happy to kind of explain these things in detail for you. The result then, over this 3-year period, we have seen that 77% of the findings that were discovered in the factories were confirmed to be closed. And these are the factories that we have looked at in this report. Covers workplaces of about 46,600 workers. So we feel that TCO Certified has achieved a real change for these workers and for many workers. Then we have a lot more factories in TCO Certified program than the ones that are covered in this report. So our impact is much larger than this, but this is the impact that we have been able to measure over this time period. You can also read much more about the different types of findings and how we have come up with these statistics in the report. And there you can also find some interesting information about which type of findings were more or less easy to achieve closure on. This illustrates one of the major important things with TCO Certified, one of the differences with TCO Certified, I want to say, that we drive for and achieve closure on the findings in the factories, and not only audits. Many initiatives in the market and also many purchasers, they are satisfied with factory audits. But after an audit, you will almost every time have findings. And when you have findings, it's your responsibility to ensure that these findings are closed. Because if you open the rock and look under it, you are responsible about what you find there as a purchaser. And this is the same for brand owners who are at the top of the supply chain and have the control and responsibility of the manufacturing of their products. So with TCO Certified, we don't only ask for audits, but we also ensure that findings are closed and the factories are working to achieve closure as fast and as efficiently as is possible for each factory owner. So In the report, we have looked at 20 factories, and the reason that we have only looked at 20 factories is that these 20 factories, we had 2 audits at the same factory during this 3-year period, so we could compare and get the closure ratio. There are a lot more factories in the TCO Certified program, but for these 20, we had 1 initial audit and 1 closure audit during this 3-year period, and that's why we use it for these statistics. At these 20 factories, there are about 46,600 factory workers. As I said, we have much more factories, so there are much more workers that are affected by the requirement that we set in TCO Certified. So when you as a purchaser push the industry to achieve certain improvements in the factory conditions, these improvements will affect a lot of workers because a lot of factories are covered by the TCO Certified program, and we apply the same rules for every factory. So in these 20 factories, in the initial audits, we found totally 109 non-conformities. Every factory had some challenge, and that's also something to remember as a purchaser. If you ask for audit reports from a factory, you will have non-conformities. It's very unlikely that the factory will be okay, completely okay. You will have some non-conformities, and then the second task for you is to start working with the brand owner or the factory to handle these non-conformities, and that's a challenging task. We have divided these non-conformities in 3 categories. These are 3 categories that are commonly used. Health and safety, covering a big range of different non-conformities. And in the report, in the full report, you can read more about the different subcategories. Labor rights, that's covering working hours, discriminations, and so on. They are also in the report, you can see all the different subcategories there. And then have code of conduct communication, how the brand owner is working to inform and enlighten the supply chain about their code of conduct. And as you can see, the majority of non-conformities were in the health and safety and labor rights area. As I said in the beginning of this chapter, the health and safety area, the challenge there is that non-conformities are reoccurring. So the problem is solved, but then 1 or 2 years later, it reoccurs. While in the labor right area, there is a big challenge to achieve closure. So it takes much longer time. While in the health and safety area, it can take a few weeks or months to solve a problem. In the labor right area, it can take a year because there are so many things that needs to be changed in the factories. If you need to reduce the working hours generally for all your labor, you need to hire more people. You need to rethink your manufacturing process. While in the health and safety area, you normally just need to improve certain areas like fire exits or safety equipment and so on, which is much faster solution. As you can see, we had 77% closure rate. And some of you might think, okay, you only had 77% closure rate. First of all, I would like to point out that you need many initiatives and many purchasers just ask for the audit, and then they get the confirmation that this will be closed. But it's not until you look and do a closure audit that you really see if they are closed or not. The closure rate of 77% is after 2 years. So most of these had about 1 or 2 years between the audits. And over this 3-year period, it could be other non-conformities that have been closed. The things that affect how much time it takes for a factory to close a non-conformity are several factors. In TCO Certified, it's mandatory that all factories work on corrective actions and close their non-conformities. As long as a factory is doing their utmost, doing their best to solve their problem, they are allowed to keep the certificate. We have independent experts who are validating the corrective action plan and validating the performance that the factory are fulfilling their corrective action plan. And as long as they are doing what is scientifically and reasonably to resolve their corrective actions, they can keep their certificate. If they are lingering or if they are refusing to cooperate, the certificate will be withdrawn. Some of the factories might even be banned to produce TCO certified products if they are not cooperating with corrective actions. And these are the consequences that we are able to implement and use to drive this improvement. But there's a big difference between different factories. Factories have different maturity on how they look at sustainability and how mature their management system is. So a factory that has been working with these topics for a lot of time, when there is a non-conformity, it's much easier for them to resolve them. Some factories have really well working trade unions that can help. We have there are a lot of other systems that influence the speed that the factory can resolve a problem. The second thing that affects the time to resolve a non-conformity is the brand owner's management system and the maturity of the brand owner's management system. The brand owner is the customer of the factory. The brand owner is paying the factory for the manufacturing of the certified product. So the brand owner has leverage over the factory. The brand owner can ask the factory to speed up the resolving of the non-conformity. And those brand owners that have worked with this, that are engaged and consider social responsible manufacturing important, they will push their factories more. So this also affects how fast a non-conformity can be solved. Then there is the business relation between the brand owner and the factory. If they see this as a long-term relationship that they want to protect, then it's also easier to get a fast solution. While some relationships are more short-term and the brand owner might change to a different factory after this product have ceased production. And finally, we also see that the leverage on the factory has a big impact. Some of the factories are very big, and one or two brand owners might only represent a small percentage of their production. And in this case, it can be different for these two brand owners or one brand owner to convince the factory to make improvements. So in this case, we have a system in TCO Certified where we can join many brand owners using the same factory to put a combined leverage on the factory. In TCO Certified, we have a factory list that is a confidential list, but we can see exactly which brand owners are using which factories. And with that knowledge, we can, when we see a problem on the factory, we can combine all of those brand owners using the same factory to put a collective leverage on the factory. And in many times, the brand owners don't know which other brand owners are using the same factory. So this is a strength with the TCO Certified system, that we as an independent party can create this leverage. All right. As I said, you can read more about it in the report if you want more details. Now we are going into the next chapter, and this is about hazardous substances. This is an area that's very interesting. A lot of purchasers are talking about it, asking us questions about it. This is a topic that is high on the agenda, I would say. And we believe that hazardous substances will be a very important topic in the future. We have seen a challenge during this time, 2015 to 2018, that there are a flooding of chemicals on the market. Thousands of untested chemicals are introduced in the market, and the current legislation is not keeping up with this. So in the report, we mention an estimation based on a external source about 25 to 90,000 different chemicals. Of course, only some of these are used in IT products, but it's a very big risk that substances are used in IT products and no one has an idea what the effect of this substance can be, because most of these substances have never been assessed or tested. And the current legislation only ban substances that are proven to be dangerous. So all the substances that have unknown properties are allowed to be used until someone proves that they are dangerous. And the incentive for the industry to pay money and prove that a substance is dangerous is very low. So normally it's the society, the civil society and the legislators that has to invest money in assessing and testing the chemicals to prove that they are dangerous. And of course, the resources are not enough to handle these enormous amount of chemicals. So the absolutely majority of chemicals that are used today have unknown properties regarding hazard. And this is something we felt was a very big challenge for the society, and it's something that we believe will be more and more on the agenda in the future, and we thought we wanted to change that. So we introduced a new type of criteria in TCO Certified. It is an accepted substance list instead of a list that ban a few substances. So we introduced an accepted substance list where we only accept flame retardants that have been assessed and have known hazardous properties, and where the toxicologists consider these chemicals a better alternatives than other chemicals that are available on the market. We decided also that this list would be official, public list, and that all the cost numbers should be printed on the list. And with the cost number, anyone can go in and see exactly the recipe for the substance and challenge the assessment. If someone has a different opinion on the assessment, they can challenge it and the substance can be reassessed. And this is a very strong way to ensure that those substances that are listed on this list are the best alternatives to use in the market. IT products are made out of plastic, and plastic is made out of oil, and oil burns very well. So it is often necessary to use flame retardants to ensure that the plastic doesn't take fire. And that's why flame retardant is one of the major hazardous substances that is added in plastics. This is where we started, and it's our ambition to increase this list with more substances over the years. So the result over this 3-year period is that we are now speeding up the shift towards using safer alternatives. And we do that by making the safer alternative the mainstream choice. When an IT manufacturer wants to design a new product, they know that they can only use flame retardants that are on our list. So they go to our list, they look at it, and they choose one of these flame retardants. Or, of course, they could choose something that's not on the list, but then they have to go through the hassle of getting it assessed. So with this strategy, we are making more and more of the players in the IT industry substituting their unknown substances or the dangerous substances with better alternatives that have been assessed and evaluated by toxicologists. We also believe that this list may be used by other parties in the industry who are not in the IT industry, but are building other types of products. But we are not aware if this is currently happening. Yeah, the list works like this. You need a flame retardant for your plastic enclosure. If the flame retardant is not already on our list, you send it for assessment. And this is a fairly economic assessment. It takes a few weeks and costs a few $1,000s, and then get the benchmark score, and if it's high enough, you can push the substance on our list and use it. Finally, we decided to work with conflict minerals. This was also a topic that was discussed a lot in 2015 to 2018. There were new legislation coming in place in the world, and there was a big debate. The debate has, of course, been there for a lot of time, but there was even more debate during this period, and we introduced a requirement to handle conflict minerals beyond what the law could do. So we saw that the challenge in this period was that the existing legislation was not efficient enough. There were two major laws that were introduced. One was the Dodd-Frank Act in the US. And the problem with the Dodd-Frank Act was that it only covered companies in the US. TCO Certified is a global certification covering products all over the world, and there are a lot of IT companies that are not US based. So we believe this law was not enough to resolve this global problem. The other law was the European law for conflict minerals, and the problem with the European law was that it only covered minerals that were imported into Europe as minerals, not in the form of a product. And as most of the minerals that come into EU are part of products, this law was basically not so strong either. So we felt that TCO Certified need to have tougher requirement, and it needs to have a requirement that works on a global scale. The challenge with conflict mineral is that the supply chain of an IT product is very complex. You have the final assembly factory. The final assembly factory is putting the product together, putting it in a box and shipping it to the retailers, or the final assembly factory purchasing subcomponents from a component manufacturer. That can be hard disk, CPUs, panels, power supplies, and so on. The sub-supplier are purchasing components from other sub-suppliers, cables and different electronic components, batteries, and so on. And after a number of sub-suppliers, you finally reach the refiners, where the metals are refined into materials that can be used in the products. Under the refiners, there are the smelters that create metals from the ore, and the smelters are supplied by traders who purchase the ores directly from the mines. And in many cases, the mines are run by small private families, and in some areas, all of these mines are controlled by military organizations that create this conflict. So one of the big challenges here is for the IT company, the brand owner, who is one step above the final assembly factory, to map the whole chain and find out where are all the mines that supply minerals to the components in my product. And this mapping can take more than a year to conduct. And that's called a due diligence process, to go through your supply chain and find out where does this where does the ore come from. And before you know that, you don't know if you have conflict minerals in your products. So this is kind of the first step to understand if you really have conflict minerals. But it's a very large process, and it takes a lot of time. So what we decided to do as our first requirement in this area that we introduced in 2015 was that first of all, we wanted every brand owner to have an official code of conduct where they officially state that they don't want to support conflicts by purchasing minerals from conflict regions. So this is kind of a statement. The second thing we wanted is that every brand owner should do some real action in combination with this promise. And then we gave them two choices. One of the choices is to start doing this due diligence process. And that's, as I said, it's a real long process that takes a lot of time and effort. The other alternative is to support in-region initiatives in the area where the conflict occurs. And we've seen several good initiatives in these areas where they're trying to make it more difficult for the military groups to earn money on this mining by labeling mines from more fair mines, and they are working with smelters to make sure that the smelters only purchase minerals from the better mines. And there are several of these concrete initiatives that achieve real actions already today. So these were two of the alternatives the brand owners had. And in the long run, we wanted everyone to do a due diligence process. That was also stated in our requirements. What we achieved was that the engagement in conflict minerals doubled in the 3-year period among the brand owners that we are working with. A lot of brand owners who didn't do anything started doing something. There was a lot of new policies in place. Some brand owners didn't have a conflict mineral policy, and they got the board of directors to sign it and publish it on the web. A lot of brand owners decided to support these in-region initiatives, and that hopefully helped them to achieve much more during these 3 years than what they could have done without this support. And finally, a lot of brand owners also started this due diligence program, and 4 of them even managed to finalize their due diligence program in this 3-year period. So this, we believe, was also a great achievement on the conflict mineral area. And please read more about it in the report. In this presentation that you can find on our website, I think it will be sent to you even afterwards. You can see the page numbers, but the conflict mineral chapter is page 25 to 28 in the report. Finally, during these 3 years, we conducted annual interviews with the brand owners, social responsibility representatives. So every brand owner has to appoint a senior manager who is in charge of social responsible manufacturing. And we have an audit with an interview where an independent auditor interview them and put a lot of questions to them, and then we get the report back where we can see how the different brand owners answer these questions. And based on this, we get a good idea on where the industry is going, what are the hotspots, what are the challenges, the emerging challenges, and how engaged are the different brand owners, what is the average, and which ones are behind and ahead of the industry. And this is what we can see here. We have put together a few observations over these 3 years. We could see that the transparency in the supply chain has increased, meaning that a lot of brand owners decided to do the due diligence and map up their supply chain to a greater extent, so they have more knowledge which are the second tier and third tier suppliers supplying components to their products, instead of only having a business relation with the final assembly. And some brand owners even decided to publish parts of their supply chain so that everyone can see which factories they work with. We also saw that brand owners started to do more risk analysis of the suppliers they're using before they even sign contract with them. We saw that brand owners increased the engagement with unions and NGOs in the area where the factory is. But this engagement is still low. We would like to see that this increase more because we believe that it's a strong and efficient tool to achieve improvement. But we saw some increase during these 3 years. We saw that worker representatives in the factories were educated on the freedom of association and collective bargaining to compensate for unions in the areas where unions are not allowed, such as China, for example. And we also saw that whistleblowing programs increased during these 3 years. So these are some of the observations. We have a lot more observations based on these interviews, but these are some of the more important ones. Yeah, you can see these much more in detail in the report on the page 29 to 31. That was the summary of the achievements for TCO Certified Generation 7, which was active during 2015 to 2018. I just want to go very quickly through some of the improvements we made to TCO Certified Generation 8, which was launched in the end of 2018. And one thing we did for factory conditions was that we have introduced a risk categorization of factories. So we categorize factories in 3 different risk classes, where the ones that have a higher risk will need to have much more audits and much more control than those factories with lower risk. And risk depends on which country the factory is placed in, how their history of closing non-conformities looks like, if they are using independent audit systems for this, or if they have a good management system. We also increased the frequency of audits, having much more audits now to look at for the coming report that we are going to publish in the future. We have a requirement that every factory should have a health and safety management system, so that when health and safety issues are discovered, it will be easier to resolve them through this existing management system. And we also introduced requirements in TCO Certified on anti-corruption system for the production of TCO Certified products. So these are some of the changes in this area covering social responsible manufacturing in TCO Certified Generation 8. Then we have hazardous substances in TCO Certified Generation 8. And here we have included on the list also plasticizers, which is another category of chemicals that are added to plastics. I told you before that plastics are made of oil and oil burns, so therefore you use flame retardants to minimize the risk of fire hazard in the plastic. But plastic is also very rigid, and you need something to make it soft or to change the surface so that it feels like rubber. And for these purposes, you use plasticizers. So that's another big category of chemicals that is used in plastics. And now we've also included that on our accepted substance list. So it's only allowed to use plasticizers in certified products that have been assessed and put on our accepted substance list. Then we have introduced a new requirement on the factories, that all the factories need to have to declare their process chemicals. There's been a big debate about the chemicals that workers are exposed to when they are manufacturing products, and we felt that it's important to now start looking at this and find out which type of chemicals are used. And in the future, we have the ambition to convince the industry to substitute the more dangerous chemicals to better alternatives, also so that we reduce the exposure to workers to dangerous chemicals. We also introduced a requirement on personal protective equipment, so that workers, for example, working with chemicals, have the necessary breathing masks and gloves and protective equipment to reduce the risk of cancer and other diseases. Finally, for conflict minerals, we decided to include cobalt, which is also a very challenging mineral to mine. It has also been associated with a lot of conflicts. We also decided to expand the conflict mineral policy from Africa and the Democratic Republic of Congo to minerals mined anywhere in the world. And this is also something that differs from other initiatives and legislation. Most legislation only focus on Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, but we believe that minerals should not cause conflicts regardless of where they are mined in the world. There are a lot of other places in the world where mining of conflict minerals cause conflict. So a conflict mineral policy should be global. We also decided that from generation 8, from the end of 2018, you can no longer choose between due diligence and individual initiatives. You need to do both of them. So from generation 8, all products that are certified, the brand owners will have to do both of these real actions associated with conflict minerals. Again, these things, you can read about them in the end of the report. And in the future, we will release a similar report covering the achievements in TCO Certified Generation 8 once we have enough data to write such a report. Thank you very much for listening to this presentation. It's now time for me and Stephen Fuller to ask questions that you might have. I will see with Steve here if there are any questions, and otherwise we are ready. So
we have one question here that's come in. So it asks, how do you assess to which part the changes in the last 3 years can be connected to your engagement? That means not others that are claiming for, the closure of these findings to their initiatives or their programs. So how are we justifying that this is due to TCO Certified and not other programs? And I'd say that we've been working with social criteria now for a very long time, 9 years altogether. So we started to get a very good picture about the kind of persistent issues that are out there. As Nicholas said, we have health and safety issues that are easy to identify and quite easy to solve, but we see reoccurrence. A systematic breakdown in the process of correction to make sure they don't happen again is a usual corrective action. But then you have the persistent findings that we've witnessed. These findings to do with labor rights that we witness are very difficult for brand owners and suppliers to work and to fix. So that is why we introduced during 2015 onwards this assessment of corrective action plans. So we not only demanded in the audit report, but we also wanted to see the corrective action plan so that we could have a third-party expert assess the corrective action for effectiveness. And that way we gave feedback to the brand owners or the supply chain in improving their corrective action. And that way we started to monitor that these corrective actions were implemented, updated, and followed that all the way through to closure. So that's how we can link this progress that we've made with these persistent findings to our work with brand owners and suppliers with their corrective action process.
Yeah, I agree, Steve. I can just add in to that. And for all these areas, the factory conditions, the hazardous substances, and the conflict minerals, during these 3 years, we've had a lot of discussions with the industry. We've had discussions with factories for resolvement of non-conformities, we have had to push them and explain the consequences that will happen if improvements are not made in time. For the hazardous substances, we have had discussion with the chemical industry several times in several different countries, trying to convince them to put their substances on our official list. And finally, to some of them, explain that if they don't do this, they are not able to sell these substances anymore to the companies that are working with TCO Certified. And for conflict minerals, we've had a lot of discussions how a due diligence process is done, that the policy, conflict mineral policy, must be signed by the board of directors, must be officially published on the website. We've had so many discussions with so many different brand owners, and by those discussions we see that this is not something that is done easily. This is many of these things that we've talked about in this report. We met some resistance, and through the discussions we finally came to the conclusion that brand owners and factories have implemented these changes. And by that we also feel that it's caused by our requirement and by our methods of convincing the industry to do this.
We have another question here. Is there also work going on regarding alternative materials in IT products? And of course, when we started with the flame retardant criteria, and brand owners started to see that maybe their flame retardant wasn't going to be on our list, they started looking into alternative ways that they could design their products and use alternative materials. So of course this has led to perhaps to do with cables, for example, that PVC will be replaced by an alternative material, for example, if a plasticizer isn't on our list. So this does actually motivate our listing, that alternative materials will be researched that would lead to the way of not having to use flame retardants or plasticizers in that way. So we do see that development happening. How do auditors gain access to factories and guarantee their independence? How deep are they going in the supply chain, 1, 2, or 3rd tier? So our criteria are that we actively look at the final assembly factories of TCO certified products. We expect the brand owner to have responsibility for the whole of the supply chain, of course. So if any identified human rights abuses come to our attention that involve the supply chain of TCO certified products, we accept the brand owners to take responsibility and conduct corrective action towards that. But actively at this generation, we are looking in the 1st tier, which is usually the final assembly, which we call the final assembly of the product.
Yeah, I saw that there was some question there about tiers, and tiers are the different levels in the supply chain. And we think that the brand owner is the top of the supply chain. That's tier 0 or something. The final assembly is where the product is assembled and put in the paper box to be shipped to the retailers. And then the next level is the 2nd tier, where you manufacture the panel, the hard drives, the power supply, some cables and so on. And the 3rd tier would be components including the panel or in the power supply or the CPU assembly or so on. So these are how you consider the tiers, and the further down you go the chain, the more actors you will have. It's like a pyramid. It's spreading out very quickly, and this is one of the biggest difference between IT products and other products like a banana or a coffee bean, where you have a much a smaller and easier supply chain. With an IT product, it's very complex.
Yeah, and each auditor has access because these are factories that are producing TCO certified products. So this is at the request of the brand owners that are using that factory. We also have access to the factories when we do our spot checks. So we visit, we choose what we consider to be maybe high risk supplier, and we go and visit them. So we and the brand owners can and the independent auditors have access to TCO certified final assembly factories. So in the next generation of TCO certified generation 9, we will be looking more to go actively into the next tiers of production. Once we have final assembly, those factories that we consider to be low risk in our accepted factory list, then we can start to concentrate and focus on the next tiers, getting lower.
All right, so then I thank everyone for joining this webinar. We will answer all of your questions by email, and we invite you to the next time we have a webinar. Thank you very much, and bye-bye. Have a good day.